Welcome to Module 3. In Module 3, we're going to have a brief overview of the program itself. We're going to get to know some of the basics within Cakewalk by BandLab, and we're also going to learn some terminologies that are going to help us whether we're looking up documentation online or just for going through this tutorial. For instance, if I was to say I'm going to switch to the console view or the track view, or I'm going to look at the clips pane, by saying these different terminologies as of right now, if you're a newcomer to this particular DAW, it may not make a lot of sense. But after knowing these terminologies and seeing it on the screen, it should all be able to fit into place. So let's go ahead and dive in. Cakewalk by BandLab's menus and tools give you access to all the features of Cakewalk. Some menu choices and tools actually display dialog boxes that let you choose among various options or type in values that you want. If you click in most views, in time rulers, or in certain other items with the right mouse button, you'll see a pop-up menu that provides quick access to many common operations. What you see before you is a blank project. The project is the center of your work in Cakewalk. If you're a musician, a project might contain a song, a jingle, or a movement of a symphony. If you are a post-production engineer, a project might contain a 30-second radio commercial or a lengthy soundtrack for a film or video production. By default, every project is stored in a file known as a project file. The normal file extension for a Cakewalk work file is .cwp. Now from these projects, Cakewalk organizes the sound and music in your project into tracks, clips, and events. Tracks are used to store sound or music made by each instrument or voice in a project. For example, a song that is arranged for 4 instruments and 1 vocalist may have 5 tracks, 1 for each instrument and 1 for the vocals. Each project can have an unlimited number of tracks, and some of these tracks may be used in your finished project, while others can hold alternate takes, backup tracks, and variations that you might want to keep for future use. So in essence, each track can be made up of 1 or many clips. There are a couple of different ways to insert a track within Cakewalk by BandLab. One, I can simply right-click here and go to Insert Audio Track. You'll also see just to the right of this that there is a keyboard shortcut, Ctrl+T, which will do the same thing. I can also go up here to this plus symbol and add a track this way. Now this gives me more options and allows me to set the input, as well as if I go to the advanced, I can set the output or even create a folder for it. Automatically record, enable it, or enable input monitoring. From here I also can actually insert an instrument track, which we'll use with VSTI instruments. And at the bottom left-hand corner, you can see that I can add a numerable amount of tracks all at once. Our next piece of Cakewalk terminology is clips. Clips are pieces of sound and music that make up your tracks, such as the one that you can see here. A clip might contain a horn solo, a drum break, a bass or a guitar riff, a voiceover, a sound effect like the hoot of an owl, or even an entire keyboard performance. Now, a track can contain a single clip or dozens of different clips, and you can easily move clips from one track to another by simply clicking and dragging it. Okay, and the next term we're going to learn is groove clips. Now, groove clips are audio clips which have tempo and pitch information embedded within them, allowing them to follow changes to the project tempo or project pitch. You can click on either edge of the groove clip and drag out the repetitions in the track. Now, as it stands, this particular clip is just a one-shot sample, and so it is not a groove clip. I can simply right-click on it, go to Groove Clip Looping, and now you'll see that when I drag the edge of it, it automatically repeats. Essentially, any piece of audio can be groove clip looped, but you have to make sure that the timing aligns with the grid. All right, the next piece of Cakewalk terminology we're going to discuss are events. Events are MIDI data in MIDI tracks or automation data. So for instance, if I was to automate this drum track, this would be considered an event. Likewise, this MIDI clip would be considered an event. A MIDI clip contains any combination of MIDI note events and continuous controller events. When MIDI events are dropped into a timeline, they automatically follow the BPMs of that particular timeline. As you can see, it is already set at 120 BPMs per our control bar. So by pressing play, it's going to play in time with the drums. Now, there are some terminologies that are tied to the way that project files are saved as well. For instance, there is a project file, and then there is a bundle file. You can find those by going to Save and Save As, which opens up this dialog box here. Now, underneath the Save As type, I can actually save it as a normal, which would be a CWP file, or I can go to a Cakewalk bundle. Now, this would save it as a CWB file. The difference between a project file and a bundle file is that if an individual that you're sending your tracks off to has Cakewalk by BandLab already installed, if you send them the bundle file version, everything that is going on in your particular project will open up on their side. All of the plugin instances, any automation changes, essentially they will see everything that you see in your personal project on their end. A bundle file also contains all audio information and MIDI information, and when opened up on a separate computer, will create automatically a Cakewalk project file for that particular project. To open a Cakewalk file, you can use the following procedures. 1, if you haven't already done so, start Cakewalk. Then choose File and Open. Here. Now in the Open dialog box, navigate to the directory where the project you want to open is located and simply select it. Then click the Open button. You'll notice on the screen that there are project files that appear as orange markers. This means that the audio is stored within a global audio folder, and there are project folders within this as well. This means that the audio is stored within that project folder. So I can simply click the project here, and all of the audio that is contained within that particular project will automatically load up. I'll simply click Open now. And here we have our opened project. All right, let's cover some more need-to-know terms within Cakewalk by BandLab. The first term that we'll cover are views. Now, Cakewalk displays your project in windows on the screen that are known as views. You can have many views open at once, all showing the same project. And when you edit a project in one view, the other related views are updated automatically. If you go up to the Views menu as found here, you can see the various views that are available: the track view, the console view, the piano view, the matrix view, the staff view, and the synth rack view. And as previously stated, any changes that are made within the project will be reflected within all of the views. The next term that we'll talk about are panes. Contained within the current view are several panes. These panes form together to make up the current view of the window that you're on. They can be moved, docked, undocked, floated, or closed, and each new arrangement of the panes can be saved as a new screen set. The docking options for each of these panes can be found usually in the upper left or right-hand corners. And on the control bar, you can see that on the left-hand side of each one of these modules, there's a smaller area here that contains a series of lines. By clicking in this area and dragging, you can move these modules around where you'd like them. Okay, so as spoken of before, these panes can be rearranged, they can be docked or undocked. And if at any time I get this to a point where I like the way that it looks, as stated before, I can save this now as a screen set. So if you move up to your control bar to the screen set option, you'll see now that I'm on screen set 1. So all of the changes that I've made on screen set 1 will be automatically saved to screen set 1. If I would like to rename screen set 1, I can do that here. Let's say I want a completely different screen set though. So I can simply switch to screen set 2. Now this changes the way that everything looks on the screen. As you can see, you can have up to 10 screen sets that can be personalized to fit your needs for different workflows. Screen sets can be a huge time saver and improve your workflow. One of the things that vastly sets apart Cakewalk from other DAWs on the market is the fact that everything within Cakewalk is completely customizable, all the way down to the way that the screen sets are laid out and even the colors that you choose. For instance, if I was to go to Edit and Preferences, I can now go to Customization and Themes, and I can completely change this theme, which will change all of the color schemes. Included within Cakewalk by BandLab is also a theme editor. So if you want to edit the theme with colors or the way that things might look, you can definitely do that. As you can see on the screen now, this is a theme that I've created with my website name actually embedded within it. All of this is possible with the Cakewalk theme editor. Now let's begin to navigate through the various panes and the views that we'll find within the screen. These terminologies are going to help you as we move forward with this tutorial. The area that you find up here is called your control bar. Contained within the control bar are several different modules. Each module contains a different function for the particular program that you're running. This is the export module. The export module provides a fast and simple way to publish the current project to your BandLab account and to export the entire project or only selected audio clips and tracks in various audio formats. This is the Tools module. The Tools module's tools provide specific editing functions. The current tool applies to whichever editing view has focus. As a shortcut, you can also press the T button to open the Tools HUD at the current pointer position, as shown here. The first one, from left to right, is the Smart tool. The Smart tool can act as the edit, select, move, draw, or erase tool, depending on where you click in a clip or track. To customize the Smart tool, long press or right-click the Smart tool button. If any Smart tool behaviors have been disabled, the Smart tool button changes to indicate that the tool has been customized. Next is the Select tool. The Select tool selects data by lassoing entire clips, MIDI notes, envelope nodes, transients, and dragging across a time range, etc. And to the right of that is the Move tool. The Move tool lets you move selected data. You can move entire clips, partial clips, MIDI notes, envelope nodes, transient markers, and clip tempo map markers. Next is the Edit tool. The Edit tool lets you adjust data. You can edit clips, adjust note start and end times, adjust fades, raise and lower clip volume envelopes, and raise and lower note velocity and automation envelopes. The next tool is the Draw tool. The Freehand tool lets you draw MIDI notes and freehand automation envelopes. You can also create and promote transient markers. You can draw sine, triangle, square, saw, and random shapes with the other shape tools. And lastly is the Erase tool. The Erase tool lets you delete clips, partial clips, MIDI notes, automation envelope notes, and transient markers. Each one of the tools within the Tools module that has a small triangle in the lower right-hand corner can be right-clicked to reveal more options within that particular tool. Moving on to the next module, we have the Snap module. With the Snap module, you can align clips, markers, and other items to the nearest point on the Snap grid. Define grid resolution as a musical rhythmic value, for instance, an eighth note, a unit of absolute time, for instance, a number of frames, seconds, or samples, an event, clip start or end, a marker, or even audio transients. Contained within this module is the Snap tool. You can enable or disable it by simply clicking it, and you can also right-click to find more options. Just underneath that is the time resolution tool. This allows you to set the snap to selected musical or absolute time resolutions. You can also click and hold to select the desired snap resolution, or simply right-click it. And just to the right of that, you can snap to a triplet value. This reduces the duration of the selected musical time resolution by 2/3 of its original duration. When triplet is enabled, 3 note events fit into the space of 2. And just to the right of that is the dotted value. This increases the duration of the selected musical time resolution by half of its original value, or 150%. Just to the right of the snap option is the snap to or snap by option. Snap to aligns data to the snap grid, and snap by moves data by the grid resolution. To the right of that is the landmark tool. This allows you to snap to selected landmarks, including markers, now time, clips, and audio transients, MIDI notes, and automation. Cakewalk will snap to landmarks on tracks or lanes that are currently visible in the clips pane. You can right-click to also access landmark options. The next module we'll talk about is the transport module. The transport module lets you control the transport and transport-related functions, such as record, return to zero, rewind, stop, play, and fast forward. The transport module also contains the current now time. The now time shows your current location in the project. You can click the time display to toggle between the following time formats: MBT, HMSF, SMPTE, milliseconds, or samples. Just below the current now time is the audio engine on-off setting. This will enable or disable the audio engine. Enable and disabling resets the audio engine, which can be useful at times. To the right of that is the reset or panic button. This resets any stuck MIDI notes. The reset button flashes if the MIDI note is stuck. To force a reload of the audio and MIDI engine, hold down the control key and click the reset button. Now, just to the right of that is the bit depth. This contains the project's recording bit depth. To change the setting, you can simply go to Edit, Preferences, Driver Settings, and from here you can change your audio driver bit depth and your sampling rate. To the right of that is the tempo display. This displays the current tempo at the now time. You can click to change the current tempo from here. You can also insert a tempo change by going to Project and Insert Tempo Change, or to edit the tempo map, go to Views, Tempo, or press Alt-Shift+5. This opens the Tempo View toolbar. You can use the Tempo View toolbar buttons to insert, delete, and modify tempo changes. And to the right of that is the current meter. This displays the number of beats per measure and the note value of each beat at the current now time. You can click this as well to change the meter. To see a list of all meter and key changes in the project, go to Views, Meter and Key, or press Alt-Shift+6. As you can see here within the Meter and Key View menu, this project only contains one particular time signature, so it only has one instance within that particular view. You can use the Meter and Key View menu to insert, delete, and modify meter or key changes in the project. The meter, also known as the time signature, describes how to divide time into rhythmic pulses. When you set the meter, you are specifying the number of beats per measure and the note value of each beat. You can insert meter and key changes at measure boundaries, and meter and key changes actually affect all tracks. To the right of that, we have the metronome options. This will allow you to set the metronome on during playback or to turn it off if it's not highlighted. You can also right-click to set the metronome options from here. Just below that is the metronome option to arm it while recording. You can turn it off or on here. If this is selected, when you press record, the metronome will automatically start. Yet again, you can right-click to set the options here. Lastly is the metronome settings. You can click the metronome icon to open the metronome preferences from here as well. It's imperative that to be able to actually hear the metronome, you have to set it to an output. As you can see here, I have a bus that's labeled metronome. So the metronome will actually be played back on this bus. All right, moving now to the right is the mix module. This allows you to configure mute, solo, arm for recording, effects bypass, and automation playback and recording settings. The letter M is for the mute function. This allows you to mute or unmute all tracks. As you can see, the button is currently not lit, as there are no tracks in this that are muted. However, even if one track was muted, this would be highlighted to let you know that there was a track within the project that was muted. If I was to click this now, it would mute all tracks globally. To the right of that is the solo button. This allows you to solo or unsolo all tracks. Yet again, if there is at least one track in your project that is soloed, this will light up as well. To the right of that is the arm or disarm all tracks option. And just to the right of that is the ability to enable or disable input monitoring on all tracks. Coming down to the next row is the effects module. This allows you to bypass all audio effects globally. And to the right of that is the exclusive solo. You can enable or disable exclusive solo mode, where you can only solo one audio track and one bus at a time. By default, Cakewalk allows you to solo multiple tracks and buses simultaneously. With exclusive solo mode, you can only solo one track and one bus at a time. This allows you to quickly listen to individual tracks and buses in isolation without having to manually unsolo other tracks or buses. Just to the right of that is the offset mode. Click this button here to enable or disable offset mode. In offset mode, you offset the current automation in a track using a perimeter's controls. And just to the right of that is the global automation playback. This allows you to enable or disable all automation playback. Continuing on to the next row, we have the live input PDC override button. This will enable or disable delay compensation on live tracks, thereby removing the latency during playback and recording for such tracks. Because it's a toggle, you can quickly turn it on to complete your tracking at low latency and turn it off when finished to hear the track compensated as normal. It's important to note that the PDC button functions as an override, which means plug-in delay compensation is disabled when the PDC button is lit. Just to the right of that is the dim solo enable or disable button. Dim solo is a mode in which non-soloed audio tracks or buses are still audible. The default gain reduction is -6 dBs, but can also be configured for -12 and even -18 dBs. To change the gain value, you simply need to go to Edit, Preferences, Audio, Driver Settings, and then select a value in the dim solo drop-down gain menu. As you can see, I currently have mine set to -12. The next button to the right is the Enable or Disable Plugin Upsampling. This allows you to globally enable or disable plugin upsampling for plugins that already have upsampling enabled. Upsampling is enabled when the button is lit. To enable or disable upsampling for a plugin, click the effects icon in the upper left corner of a plugin window and select Upsample on Playback or Upsample on Render on the drop-down menu. When selected, Cakewalk will upsample the incoming audio to 2 times the project sample rate, process the plugin at the new rate, and downsample the resulting output to the project sample rate. And lastly, we have the Clear All Automation or Write Enables. This will allow you to globally disable automation write enables for all armed perimeters. The next module to the right is the loop module. This enables or disables loop playback within your project. By clicking and dragging on the timeline up here, I can go to loop and set my loop points to the current selection. This will enable the audio playback engine to loop after it reaches the end of this particular marker. These markers can be dragged from left to right as well for fine-tune adjustments. The next module we'll talk about is the performance module. The performance module lets you monitor your computer's performance, including CPU, disk, and memory activity. Right-click the CPU meters and point to CPU meter options to specify the global CPU meter mode. The first option is audio processing. This measures Cakewalk's audio processing load which is the time it takes to process a buffer full of audio data as a percentage of the maximum time available to process that data and maintain uninterrupted playback. The next option is system performance. This displays the global system-wide load across all cores as reported by the operating system. And last is the overall app performance, and this displays a single CPU meter for the entire Cakewalk process CPU utilization across all cores. The disk activity indicator measures how much of the available time Cakewalk is using to perform input and output functions on your hard disk. Just to the right of that is the disk space meter. The disk space meter shows the amount of available space on the drive where your WAV data directory is located. The memory usage or RAM meter shows the total memory or RAM usage by your computer, not just by Cakewalk. To the right of that is the selection module. The select module lets you configure selection settings. From here, you can select the current from time, and just below that, you can select the current through time. And to the right of that is the punch module. The punch module configures punch record settings. This allows recording over only a selected portion of a track. Your punch in time and out time can be set here, and you can set it to an auto punch on or off. The auto punch feature can be used in either one of the recording modes, whether it be comping, overwrite, or sound on sound. Those modes can be accessed from here by right-clicking. In comping mode, when you record several different takes, it will be comped into take lanes, which will be stored just underneath the track that it was recorded on. In overwrite, it will overwrite the previously recorded track if one is present. And in sound on sound, you will hear the previous track at the same time that you're recording on top of that track. Just below that is the option to set your punch time to a selection. From here, you can set the punch in time to the start from time of the selection and to the punch out time to the end or the through time of that selection. To the right of that is the Screenset module. As briefly already covered, the Screenset module lets you select and edit screensets. A screenset is a snapshot of the current layout of various views and windows in a project, including which windows are open, their size, position, zoom level, and whether they are docked or floating. You can create up to 10 screensets per project and freely switch between each screenset at any time. Just to the right of that is the Act module. The Act module determines how hardware control surfaces interact with effect and SoftSense plugins. At the top, you see your control surface name. You can select the control surface plugin that matches your hardware control surface from here. Just below that, you see your control surface status. This is a status display for the selected control surface plugin. At the lower left-hand corner is the control surface property page. This opens a page that lists the attributes of the selected control surface plugin. The small button to the right of that is the Act Learn button. This enables or disables Act Learn. Act Learn allows you to assign a specific effect or synth parameter to a specific hardware control on your control surface. And Act Lock to the right of that will lock or unlock the current Act context. The next module to the right is the Markers module. The Markers module lists, describes, and allows editing the markers used for navigation. You can insert a marker from here, name the marker, and select the timing of the marker from here. Markers can be moved by clicking and dragging them as well. As you can see, I have an intro and a verse 1 marker set now. When I go to my Markers tab, I can toggle between these two. Or I can jump to the previous or to the next marker by using these here. This can really save you a ton of time navigating through Cakewalk by BandLab. The next module is the Event Inspector module. The Event Inspector module lets you view and modify settings for select clips and MIDI note events. If you select multiple notes, the Event Inspector module displays the note value if all selected notes values are the same. If the note values are different, the Event Inspector does not display anything. Cakewalk by BandLab actually allows you to edit video within its program as well, and the Sync module lets you configure synchronization settings. This shows you the time code format. This box displays the incoming time code, and this is the sync type, whether it's internal, MIDI sync, SMPTE sync, or audio sync. This button will transmit MIDI sync to external MIDI devices such as drum machines, standalone MIDI, hardware sequencers, and sequencers built into MIDI keyboards, only available when using the internal or audio clock. And this button will allow you to transmit the MIDI timecode to external devices that can receive MTC. SMPTE or MTC is a position and timing reference that indicates the current location in the project and how quickly the project should be playing. The SMPTE and MTC timecode labels the position in a project in hours, minutes, seconds, and frames. Next is the custom module. The custom module lets you assign various Cakewalk commands to various buttons. For instance, by a simple click of a button, I can save this project from here, or save as. I can import, export, or even fit the entire project to a window. By right-clicking, I can change any of these options at any time. So if you find yourself digging through menus to find certain keyboard shortcuts or commands, you can simply use the custom menu to have them all at your fingertips right here. Lastly is the Mix Recall module. The Mix Recall lets you save and recall multiple mixes for the current project. The top button on the left allows you to save the current mix to a selected mix scene. If no mix scene is selected, a new mix scene or a CWM file is created. To the right of that, you can save the current mix to a new mix scene. This allows you to make adjustments to one mix and then save a new mix scene and seamlessly toggle back and forth between the two, providing instant recall settings of various mixes within a mix. So for instance, if you were exporting a mix to a client that you wanted the vocals down 3 dBs, you can simply bring the vocals down 3 dBs and save that as a 3 dB down mix and recall that setting at any given time. You can name those scenes or delete those scenes at any time from this menu as well. Moving down on the screen now, we're going to begin from left to right. By pressing the I button, I can either enable or disable the inspector view. The inspector view shows you a lot of information about your particular track. The track inspector and properties inspector provide easy access to relevant settings for the selected tracks and/or clips. You can see now that I have track 1 selected, and it shows up here in the inspector view. Within here, there are several different options. For instance, I can show or hide the arrangement inspector with this button here. I can also show or hide the clip properties inspector. This gives you a list of the properties for the said clip. I can show and hide the track properties, and this will show you a list of properties for the said track. I can also show and hide the Pro channel. We'll get into the Pro channel a little bit more in depth later. Now we're going to move on to the right-hand side. The first menu option that we have here at the top is the View menu, which allows you to select and specify various display options for the track view. The next option is the Options menu, which allows you to specify various options for the track view, such as meter settings and crossfade types. The next option to the right is the Tracks menu. This menu contains various commands for editing tracks. To the right of that is the Clips menu. This menu contains various commands for editing clips. And next is the MIDI menu. This menu contains various options for the inline piano roll view. The inline piano roll view lets you edit note and continuous controller events for a single track directly in the track view. To show a track's inline piano roll, click the track's edit filter control and choose Notes. And the next option to the right is the Region Effects menu. This menu contains various commands for editing region effects clips, including Vocal Sync, Melodyne, and the Drum Replacer. Just underneath those menu options is the track pane header. You can right-click this to show or hide the track view Now Time display. Just to the right of that is the Add Track option. This will allow you to create new tracks. Click to open the Add Track menu, which consists of an Audio tab and an Instrument tab, each with the relevant setting for creating audio or instrument tracks. You can specify the track type, number of tracks, and the settings such as record enable, input monitoring, input, and output options. To insert a new track with the same attributes as the last track inserted, you can also simply hold down the Shift key and click the Add Track button. A track is inserted without opening the Add Track menu. You'll notice too that there is an advanced and a simpler version. The advanced will allow you to create a folder for the track or create a separate bus for the track as well. Just to the right of that is the Duplicate Track option. This allows you to duplicate the selected track or tracks. By default, only track properties are duplicated, but not clips. You can choose to include events, properties, sends, and/or effects in the copy tracks and specify a destination. To specify the default settings, right-click the Duplicate Tracks button. And just to the right of that is the Track Control Layout presets. Use this to select a preset to specify which controls are displayed in the track strips. Select Track Control Manager to customize the layout or create your own layout presets as well. To cycle through the available presets, you can also press Shift and left or right arrows. I'm going to set this to all. This now displays everything that this track has to offer, including volume, pan, gain, my input, output, whether it is stereo or mono interleaved, and my phase normal or phase inverted settings. At the very top right of this bar, you see the ability to enable or disable automatic crossfades from here. You'll notice that this also has a small triangle in the lower right-hand corner, which allows us to know that it has more menu options within it. From here, you can select your preferred automatic crossfade option. Just to the right of that is the Ripple Edit On and Off option. You can click this to enable or disable ripple editing. Ripple editing allows you to adjust the position of a clip and automatically adjust the start position of all subsequent clips to compensate for the change. You can long press or right-click to specify the desired ripple edit behavior. The ripple edit selection affects all clips that are in downstream from the selected clip, and locked clips are ignored. With the ripple edit all selected, in addition to downstream clips in all tracks, it also affects meter and key changes, tempo changes, and markers. Locked markers are ignored in this instance. All right, and moving down now, we have the arranger track. This can be sized and resized here, and open or closed here as well. There are essentially two different views for the arranger track, the one that's in your track view and the one that's in your inspector view here. The arranger track timeline shows all defined sections. You can drag to create and/or rearrange sections at any given time, and double-click to insert a new section that inherits the duration of the last clicked selection. Any changes in the arranger's timeline are reflected in the arranger inspector's sections list, and vice versa, as seen here. The arranger inspector manages a list of project sections and facilitates quick reordering of sections without having to drag or zoom horizontally with the clip's pane. The sections list contains all the arranger sections defined in the project's timeline. The order of the sections reflect the order in which they appear in the timeline. Any operation performed in the sections list is immediately reflected in the project timeline, and vice versa. The arrangements section allows you to sequence sections in a non-linear manner without destructively moving any audio clip data, regardless of which order they appear in the project's timeline. To create an arrangement, you can drag selections from the selections list or from the arranger track. The sections can be recolored, renamed, duplicated, and/or deleted from here. Much like the Mix Recall option, you can save various arrangements as well. This would be considered arrangement 1. Now, if I wanted to save another arrangement, I could save this one as arrangement 2. And now I could seamlessly toggle back and forth between the two. When audio is placed within the track's pane, these sections will then play out and allow you to loop and go to certain sections of the song where you might have markers already set or how you've named them. I do have a brief tutorial on my YouTube channel about the arrangements feature, so we won't go too in-depth on that here. If you should decide that you don't want to use the arrangement feature, you can simply hit the A button on your keyboard. Alright, moving down now into the track view, we have in focus several different tracks. Contained at the top is the track name and number. By double-clicking in this portion here, you can rename the track. This allows you to assign a track name for easy reference. Note that you do not have to assign a name to a track. The default name is the track number. The track number will change if you change the order of the tracks. Just to the right of that is your peak level. This displays the peak value, which is the amplitude of the latest audio peak in the track. To jump to the peak location, you simply right-click and select Go to Peak. From here, you have various icon options. For instance, you can load new track icons, reset track icons, make them large or small, or completely take them off altogether. Just to the right of that, we have the mute on and off button, the solo, the record on and off, the input echo button, and just below that allows you to set your edit filter. From here, you can choose to edit clips, edit audio transients, or edit the automation of a track. Just below that is the automation read, enable or disable, the automation write, enable or disable, the freeze or unfreeze track option, which temporarily bounces the track, including effects, to reduce the amount of CPU power needed. Cakewalk will bounce the audio in the track to a new audio clip or clips, apply any effects, and disable the effects rack. To the right of that is the archive button. The track is not played and you must stop playback to re-enable it. Archive tracks do not tax your CPU during playback, so they can be used to store alternate takes. Just below that is the current volume level for the track, ranging from -infinity or silent to +6 dBs or maximum volume. You can double-click it to reset it at any time. And just below that is the pan option. The stereo distribution of the output ranging from 100% left or hard left to 100% right or hard right. A value of C indicates that sound is centered left to right. On stereo tracks, the pan acts as a balance. And below that is the input gain. This is the pre-fader input gain for fine-tuning the track's volume. Below that is the input source. This displays the input source for the track used in recording. And below that is the output source. This displays the output bus through which the track is played. This small box below that is the mono or stereo interleave button. This forces the track to play in either stereo or mono while preserving the track's pan position in the stereo mix. The track's audio signal will enter any patched plugins as either mono or stereo, whether or not the track is in mono or stereo. This allows you to use either mono effects on a stereo track or stereo effects on a mono track. Next to that is the phase button. This will allow you to invert the phase of the track. A waveform's exact opposite is called an inversion. It is a shift of 180 degrees. A waveform and its inversion cancel each other out completely, so it's usually not desirable to have two track recordings of the same source if one is phase inverted. It can lead to reduced volume, lowered or distorted response in certain frequencies, or even silence in the case of two tracks which are exactly identical or cloned tracks. When recording a source using two microphones, one of the microphones may be recording an inversion of the other, and the resulting tracks may, to some degree, be canceling each other out. To avoid these issues, you can simply invert the phase of a track to match another. This small button at the lower left-hand corner will allow you to show or hide take lanes when using comp recording. Take lanes provide an alternative method of viewing and editing overlapping clips on a track. Overlapping clips can occur when you record multiple takes on the same track. And to the right of that is your automation take lanes. Automation lanes are an alternative method of viewing automation envelopes on tracks and buses. Automation envelopes can be displayed in the parent track or bus or in indented lanes below the parent tracker bus, as shown here. And now moving to the right, we're going to show the browser pane. This can be collapsed or enabled by pressing the B button as well. The browser lets you find and import various types of content into your projects, including audio and MIDI files, track and project templates, track icons, effect chain presets, effect plugins, and instruments. You can drag content and plugins directly into your tracks from the browser. The first tab allows you to browse through your media. The media browser allows you to browse and import various file types that can be used in your projects, as seen here. Within your media browser, you have several options. You can move up one level with this here. You can save the content location preset here. You can also delete the content location preset here. And you can also start and stop the preview. The search filter allows you to only show content that includes a specific text string in the file name. Searching is recursive. The plugins browser lets you insert effects, instruments, and rewire devices into your projects. You can click this to select a plugin layout. You can sort by category, manufacturer, type, or create your own custom layout. As you can see, I've got one here called Organized by Type. Just under that, we have several tabs that we can access as well. The audio effects shows available DX and VST audio effects plugins. To the right of that, we see MIDI effects. And to the right of that, instruments or soft synths. Just to the right of that is our rewire devices. The next tab within the browser module is the Notes tab. The Notes browser lets you store information about a project, such as a song title, artist name, album title, copyright notice, and lyrics, or other information that you want to keep track of. You can even upload album artwork here. All right, so now working our way down, you can see that there are some zoom options that are found within the track view as well. These allow you to either zoom out vertically or to zoom in vertically. You can also select this, click and hold, and drag. Just below that is the option to zoom in and out horizontally. On the edge, you'll see the up and down slider, and on the bottom, you'll see the right to left slider. This allows for quick and easy navigation through your project. At the very bottom, you see a small arrow here. This will allow you to show or hide your bus pane on your track view. By clicking this, you'll see an expanded version now of the buses that are contained within your console view. The console view can be found here. The console view displays everything within your track view only from a console format. To the left here are all of the tracks that are involved, and to the right of this slider bar here are the buses that are involved. By default, the console view is placed in the multi-dock, which is found at the bottom of your tracks pane. However, if you'd like to make it larger, you can simply click on this tab here, drag it to the top of the screen, and it will be full screen. This allows you to move it to a second monitor if need be, or you can dock it right here. If at any time, you can also minimize it and maximize it. Contained at the top of the console view is the Modules menu. This contains the controls in a channel strip. Controls in a channel strip are grouped into various modules that vary according to the channel strip type. This allows you to specify which modules to show and to hide. Next to that is the Strips menu. The Strips menu will allow you to specify which channel strip types to show in the console view. To the right of that is the Tracks menu. This will allow you to insert new tracks, convert instrument tracks, or delete the selected tracks. And to the right of that is the Bus menu, which allows you to insert new buses or delete the selected buses. To the right of that is your Options menu. This allows you to specify various console view display options. At the very top here on verse 1, we see an audio track strip. This channel strip represents an audio track. We can right-click to edit it. To rearrange the channel strips, you can hold down the Alt key and drag the channel strip to the desired position. At the very top, we have the input gain. This is the pre-fader input gain for fine-tuning the track's volume. You can add or remove up to 18 dBs of gain. Just below that, we find the collapse or hide option for the Pro channel. This opens up the Pro channel on each respective strip. By right-clicking in this blank area up here, you can either insert a new module within the Pro channel. You can set it to Post FX Rack or Pre, or you can set the current modules as default for all tracks. So, as it stands right now, this is the default: a compressor, an EQ, tube saturation, and a console emulator. By default now, if I was to create a new track, all of these would automatically be copied onto that new track that I've just created. If you find a combination of Pro Channel plugins that you really like, you can create a Pro Channel preset here. There are also several stock presets that are located within Cakewalk by BandLab by default. Just below the EQ plot found on an audio track strip is the effects bin. This is the insert location for the track's plugin effects or soft synths. You can right-click here to insert effects. Or you can simply click the plus symbol here. You can also drag and rearrange the effects within the effects bin. Just below that is the sends menu. You can add a send by clicking this here. This allows you to open the sends menu, to turn it off or on. And just below that, you have the send level, whether it's pre or post, and the pan options. All of the options that are found here are found within your track view as well. And at the very bottom, you have your insert and outsert features here. When a clip is selected, it will show up highlighted. You can select multiple clips by clicking and dragging as well. If you are wanting to open the Pro channel on all tracks, you would simply hold Ctrl-A to select all, hold your Control button, and show or hide the Pro channel from here. Now the Pro channel would be opened up on every single track. Within Cakewalk by BandLab, generally speaking, the Control button will allow you to control a wide variety of things at the same time if pressed down. For instance, I can now hold the Control button again, and by moving one fader, I can move them all together. Likewise, I can do this with the pan option, or the gain. These parameters can also be grouped. So if I wanted to set and group two tracks together, I can right-click on the fader, for instance, and group it by giving it a collar. Now all of those that have this red box enabled on them will be grouped. So if I move one, it automatically moves the other. You can remove the group from here or clear the group. To the farthest right, past this divider, is the bus strip. This channel strip represents a stereo bus. Many of the same features that were found within the tracks pane are found within the bus pane as well, so we won't go too in-depth on these. Likewise, for the sake of brevity, we're not going to cover every single plugin that's represented within the Pro channel, as I've already done that on my YouTube channel. There is an in-depth tutorial there where I go through each and every plugin.